Every morning, Alejandra Rodriguez Bautista follows in her ancestors' footsteps. She goes to the agave plants behind her house. The juice they yield can be turned into pulque, a Mexican drink that's been made in the country for centuries. It's also her primary source of income.
Here I'm rescuing the traditions my parents passed on to us. They only sold their pulque in the local area. But I hope to bring it to the cities too. People have heard of pulque, but they don't really know much about it. And if I tell them about its benefits, I'll be able to sell more.
Logré conseguir bastantes clientes.
Like Alejandra, most of the nearly 200 residents of El Almacén earn a living making pulque. It's hard work for not much money. Many dream of one day having a better life in the big cities of Mexico or in the U.S. Most of the village's young people have already left. Alejandra's 3 children no longer live here either. She herself had moved to Mexico City, but had to return to look after her parents and continue their tradition of pulque production. Because of emigration, many farms in the region are suffering from neglect. El Almacén is located at an elevation of over 2,500 meters. When it rains, water runs into the valley. As a result, soil erosion has become an increasingly grave problem in recent years.
It makes it really hard to grow maize, wheat, and beans. And these crops are central to the diet of most people here. If we lose the soil, it will be really difficult to regenerate it.
It's a vicious circle. As the erosion grows worse, even more young people leave. That's why Bibiano Bautista Gaitan set up the Mujeres Milenarias group. They're combating erosion by planting something that flourishes here, agave. Planted in rows, the agave roots form a network that helps keep water and nutrients in the soil. The hope is that fertile farmland will persuade the village's young people to come back.
We want to motivate the young people to take care of our homeland and our soil. And above all, we want to give them an incentive to stay here. We don't want them to leave.
Her group has also been getting support from Mexico City. Emiliano Iturriaga is a born and bred city dweller. His life is a world away from El Almacén. But he saw a lot of Mexico's rural areas as a child on family vacations and wants to raise awareness of the problems facing people there. In 2017, he founded a startup called Rutopía, which organizes sustainable trips to the rural outback. But many other ecotourism operators, he says, aren't as sustainable as they like to claim.
Ecotourism in Mexico has to change because right now, most of it's still based on an extractive system. And this means that people are using the natural and cultural capital of communities and of regions without giving back to the system.
His company offers an alternative. The trips it organizes aim to treat the rural population as equal partners. Most of the proceeds stay in those communities. The money is reinvested on the ground, for example, in environmental protection projects like the one run by the Mujeres Milenarias. The fair tourism system also takes group bookings. These visitors are off to El Almacén today. They're accompanied by a number of Rutopía's staff, who serve as intermediaries between the tourists and local residents. After a 7-hour drive, they finally arrive in El Almacén.
The communication is not as fluid as the beginning, and this is because there's a huge cultural gap. Sometimes there's even big language barriers. If there's a true sense of being welcome to a community, then that gap fades away quickly.
In El Almacén, that cultural gap is also closed by sharing a bowl of pulque, the beverage made from fermented agave. Its production has a proud tradition in Mexico going back more than 1,000 years. It has a refreshing, slightly sour taste. Its viscous consistency also takes some getting used to. In Mexico, agave plants are also known as maguey. They take 5, 10, or more years to grow to maturity. The pulqueros then hold a ceremony in which they ask God for permission to open the plant. Every day for an entire year, this maguey will now yield several liters of aguamiel. This honey water is then fermented for several days to produce its characteristic flavor. The result is pulque, also known as the Aztec drink of the gods. As the sun sets, the visitors join the locals around a campfire. Conversation flows and grows more relaxed. The reticence of this morning starts to melt away. The next morning, Alejandra offers a short class in the Mixteco language. The tourists are an asset for El Almacén, she says, and not just in the financial sense. The villagers are too poor to travel elsewhere, but they're happy to meet young visitors from across Mexico.
This trip has made me ask myself a lot of new questions. When I talk to the people here, they show me an area that is completely unknown if you come from the city.
I loved it, getting to know this other side of my country's culture. It's been a life-changing experience.
The visitors will spend another 2 days here, but before they leave, the villagers invite them to come back in a few months. The timing is no coincidence. That's when locals will be hosting a big pulque festival here in El Almacén.